my plan, and this had been my plan for some time, because I had come to Canada seeking spiritual enlightenment, because it was on the cards. Friends had gone to India, I didn't go with them. And a friend of my mother's, who was a famous spiritualist, had read my tea leaves and said, "You're going to meet your spiritual teacher very shortly." And her daughter knew somebody called Lobsang Rampa, who was famous for writing various books, and he was supposedly a Tibetan monk. And anyway, at that point he was living in Montreal. So then I ended up in Montreal, and the daughter worked there in the Bank of Montreal, and she had got arrangements being made for me to meet Lobsang Rampa. So on that weekend that I was supposed to meet him, that was the weekend the devotees invited me to Boston. So I took the option to go with them instead. But nonetheless, for the seriousness of the occasion, I thought it wise to establish myself in a higher state of consciousness. So I nipped into the toilet and took some LSD. And so when I came before Prabhupada in his room, I was on my way up, and Prabhupada asked me various questions about what was my level of education in Britain. I said I'd come very recently from Britain. And we were talking about these things. I thought this was a level of questioning. I didn't feel that my mundane education had any bearing on these things. I didn't really understand that Prabhupada was seeing how he could engage me in Krishna's service. In fact, I'd done 4 years of acting training, and he could well have engaged me in that way, but it never came out. I never volunteered this. I was, in the meantime, becoming very absorbed by Prabhupada's mahogany color and the lines on his face, because I was perceiving things in an enhanced optical manner. And Prabhupada said, "This is very nice that you've come to see the spiritual master, but it's more important that you should hear from him." So this was my first kind of jolt that this was actually not getting me anywhere, this enhanced state I was in, and that it would require further patient understanding of the instructions and the writings and things like this. So this was a 20-minute, half an hour darshan. Jadharani was there, and she wanted to reach a painting which was Prabhupada had his back to. He was leaning on this wall, and the painting was above his head, and she said, "Prabhupada, I'm nervous. I don't want to disturb you, but I need that painting. I've got to make some corrections to him." And he said, "You can stand on my head if you're reaching a picture of Krishna." Then on my way out, somebody had just called in and said, "Prabhupada, a dog has defecated in the hallway." I think they were student lodgings or something like that, where Prabhupada had his little apartment and suite of rooms. So on my way out, Prabhupada said to me, "Will you arrange for that to be dealt with? And see the janitor and sort that out." So that was my first service, was to sort out the dog mess. In Chinese astrology, I am a fire dog. So then after Ishtagosti, I asked Satsvarup Maharaj, should I be initiated? I would like to be. Would Prabhupada accept me? We have to go back to Montreal at short notice tomorrow morning. Is there any chance? And he said, let's go and ask him. So we went to Prabhupada's apartment door. Devananda met us at the door. He said, wait, and he went in, and then he came back fairly shortly and said, it's not possible for Prabhupada. He's going to his shower, but he will accept you. Just send your beads to him from Montreal. So a few weeks later, in those days, interestingly, we made our own beads up, and so we got them from a craft shop, and that was an interesting thing, to actually tie the knots and actually complete your beads and then send it off. It was an interesting crafted thing that you were offering Prabhupada, and then he would sanctify it. So a few weeks later, I think it was the very beginning of June, I got my beads back, and that was after we had the John Lennon Yoko Ono Bed In for Peace. So this is my initiation letter sent from New Vrindavan on May the 28th, 1969. My dear Sripati Das, please accept my blessings. I thank you very much for your letter dated May the 18th, 1969, sent along with your prayer beads, and I have duly chanted upon them and initiated you as my disciple. Your spiritual name, Sripati Das, with a footnote, handwritten by Srila Prabhupada, Sripati equals the husband of the goddess of fortune. This means the servant, you're the servant of Lord Narayan or Krishna. If you will simply continue to develop your Krishna consciousness as you have been doing, then surely you will be an expert servant of Lord Krishna. Our process is to faithfully follow the rules of no illicit sex life, no non-vegetarian diet, no intoxication, and no gambling activities. Also, we must chant at least 16 rounds each day, trying to avoid the 10 kinds of offences. You have very nice association with your nice God brothers in Montreal Temple, and you should help them to propagate Krishna consciousness in that area. So please consult with Hansadutta, and there will be ample engagement for you in this connection. If any questions or difficulties arise, you may consult with older devotees there, or if you like, I am always at your service to help you in any way that I can. So now you have great opportunity to make perfection of your life, and please always be serious about this. Then Krishna will surely give you all facilities for nice advancement. I hope this will meet you in very good health. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The reason I wanted to become initiated was I could feel the seriousness of Srila Prabhupada. He didn't seem like a sensationalist guru. I had that opportunity to go to see Lobsang Rampa, and I'd been familiar with his persona through his writings, and Prabhupada seemed of a different order. And also, I think the devotees surrounding Prabhupada, his students who were in place already, were very much a deciding factor. I could see that this was a movement. He was the head of it. I knew I had a lot to learn about him, but by that one meeting I was sufficiently impressed to feel that yes, let me go on with this exposure and try this out. I can always change my mind, I thought. So there is a famous photo of the Bed In for Peace with John Lennon, Yoko Ono, and the devotees in the Montreal hotel. And approximately 9 months after that photo was taken, I was the only one left in Montreal. The others had gone their ways. Hansadutta and quite a few of the devotees had gone to help in Vancouver. Bharadraj and Rukmini had gone to help with the art in Boston. And so therefore, inevitably, I became the president with Jayapataka's training, and then Jayapataka went. So as president, I received, in those days we used to send reports ourselves before the GBC was formed, or it was just forming, but we used to send reports to Prabhupada, so I did 2 or 3 of these and received a letter back from Prabhupada. And Prabhupada had received a letter from someone who was in our temple. He was actually more or less a lodger. I think he was a barber, and he was lodging at the temple, but he was chanting some rounds. And he had suggested to Srila Prabhupada, because he was from Chile and he'd been in the Navy or something, and he became very enthusiastic and said to Prabhupada, we should have frigates full of sailors to go around the world, and they will demand people at gunpoint to chant Hare Krishna. And this is the way we should be doing this. So Prabhupada had replied to him in this letter to me that this is a very nice idea that you've had to have naval ships to spread this Krishna consciousness. But we will not be requiring rifles. We already have our kartals. This will be our weapon. And the chanting and the mridanga will cause explosions to those people around the world. So then in LA, I had my second initiation from Prabhupada. There were just two of us brahmacharis who were initiated, one on either side of Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan in the old temple room. And we heard the mantra from Prabhupada and were initiated. Later in the day, I went up to Prabhupada's room, and from my perspective, coming from Canada, I was hot, you know, in LA. So in those days, in summer heat, we sometimes would dress in, what's the name of that when it's crossed across here, the cloth? It's got a particular name, but I think probably sannyasis have it only these days, but quite often we would wear just that, you know, without the kurta. So I was sitting there in the window seat with the window open and having darshan, listening to Prabhupada. Govinda Dasi was there, and she had a new sweater for Prabhupada. She had knitted, wool sweater, which she presented to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada changed right there on the spot, sitting behind his table. And then the conversation went on, and Prabhupada was, then Prabhupada looked at me and said, are you cold? And I didn't pick up on this straight away, but he was playing with me, and I said, no, Prabhupada, I'm fine. I'm from Canada, I was thinking, you know. This is fine for me, but I didn't get it straight away. But he said, are you sure? He gave me a second chance, and I said, oh, yes, now I am cold. So I received Prabhupada's old ex-jumper sweater and treasured it very dearly, took it back with me to Montreal, and would wear it on special occasions, which was turned into wearing it on Sankirtan. And inevitably, we did have a hot day here and there in Montreal, and sitting there in Phillips Square chanting with the devotees got quite hot sometimes. I took the jumper off and laid it down near me, and some greedy devotee swiped it from me. And search as I could, I never got it back. But then I thought to myself, well, I was there in LA representing the Montreal Yatra, so one of us had it. So while president in Montreal, I think it was 1971, Srila Prabhupada was in Boston, and we decided to join in with what was going to be quite a big initiation ceremony. There was an opportunity for these devotees to get initiated by Srila Prabhupada. So taking them down there, we had to go through quite a minor border, because we had a devotee with us who was draft dodging, and we wanted to get him through a small border point, so they wouldn't investigate him, and then he could come back in to rejoin Montreal Temple. So, but this didn't happen. He was detected at the border, and he was going to have to stay in the States and appear before draft boards or whatever happens. So he was going to make his own way down to Boston because he got detained at the border there, which he did. But we had a slightly empty car, so which meant that after the greeting of Srila Prabhupada at Logan Airport, I had some space in the car. So I was able to give Karanda a lift back to the temple because more transport was needed. And on the way back, I was talking to him and saying, it's very difficult for us to, you know, from Montreal, we feel a bit up in the sticks there, and it's hard for us to get association. What's the trick? You know, to be there with Prabhupada in a smaller number, to have darshan. What's the trick? So he said, early morning, that's what you want to do. I'll call you. So the next morning, Karanda woke me up early, and we got into Srila Prabhupada's room while Prabhupada was already up. He'd been translating, and we spent 20 minutes, half an hour with Srila Prabhupada. So this was a bit of a revelation for me, and in fact it led to a poem which I wrote a lot later. I'll read that now if I may. How to gain audience in Boston, Mass. In quiet pre-dawn corridors, air damp and odorous, a sandalwood aftermath strayed in tomorrow like a well-liked shawl, aired and cared for. I asked how, and got favour from a new-found friend. Karanda cares enough to wake me, creeping to shower, we two only now at your feet form a triad. Your cabal of heartfulness, alert for the birth, for the show of your truth words. A day marked North Beacon, spring 74. We asked, and you said. We listened and wanted to remember the most of it always. Of what to say to those who claim that all mere words are merely words. So, why do you speak? Why strive to ardently argue and state the point? Being that if words have no point, why do you make points by speaking at all? The most of it always eludes me, but feelings are clear as Indian bell. My consciousness stood to attention in that pared down domain of focus. Chill morning senses were turning nowhere. As a person that I have encountered, I would say the quality which I learnt to look for and to be aware of and to be wary of was the fact that he could see through you. He could tell beyond words or your even expression in words of what lay behind and lay beyond your immediate surface demeanor. And so everything from that point onwards was significant, and you were alert to, and it woke you up from the slumber of Kali's soft bed.
Je anilo premadana koruna prachu